welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blender at Blender HD. If you want to follow me on Twitter, and it's Mondays with McCool. You know what we do on Mondays to get the week started. Bring on James McCool, paydirt_DFS on Twitter, the co-author with me on the theory of daily fantasy sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass you could find at theoryofdfs.com. We're talking DFS strategy, as always, on this show on Mondays. I see you guys in the YouTube chat. Post your questions. We'll talk about anything. I see you guys. I see Daniel Hutchins and Card Fan and Eric Hiltpold and Dario Rosenstock and it's a Card Fan twice. Matt Mears, Brian Taylor, Aaron Rasmus, Shannon Lampert. We got everyone in here. Hit that thumbs up button. Give me those thummy thumbs. Thummy thumbs up or down. It doesn't matter. All around. Click around. Doesn't matter. Just click on anything on the YouTube page. It doesn't really matter. Other than the X button for the window, because that closes everything. So James, today is officially the day. Today's the day. They're going to crack down on the foreign substances. Right? So that means obviously we can't play you Darvish tonight because today everything is going to change. Do you think that anything is going to change?
Well, I mean, we already saw things change, right? Like we already saw the average spin rate in the league drop almost 100 RPMs. And so we already saw like some pretty overarching reactions from pitchers. We had like the Tyler Glasnow rant about how he got injured because he has to grip the ball differently, which like I'll buy that for sure.
Yeah, just amazingly enough, all these ace pitchers are going on the IL, or
Yeah, right.
How about DeGrom? What's going on with him? Like him. I almost have to. That this can't be like BS. I mean, he pitches 3 innings, has 8 strikeouts, and then it's like there's a new niggling issue with him, like every start.
So like, here's my thing with DeGrom. 1, he's an alien. He's not of this earth. 2, I think that the Tyler Glasnow thing scared a lot of managers in the league, because when Glasnow came out and was like, look, I got injured because I have to hold the ball differently now and I have to grip it differently and I'm like overexerting myself to try to pitch the same way. I think that managers saw that and were like, oh, their ace pitcher like has to have Tommy John surgery, and like it's because of them cracking down on substances. Because it's not a secret that pretty much every single pitcher in the league is using some sort of something to help with their grip. Most of them using Rosen and sunscreen, which is not like crazy. Some using Spider Tack, which is, Trevor Bauer level, but like they're all using something. And I think that these pitchers are seeing the effects of these pitchers that are trying to get through games without that help on their fingers. And I think that it scared them. And I legit think that the manager of the Mets is just like, we're not having DeGrom go that long. Like, we're not having him go 5 innings anymore. We'll have him get through the top of the order twice, and then we're going to pull him, and we're going to trust our bullpen because we're not going to lose DeGrom to this issue. So I think that there's something deeper there.
Hold on. I think they're willing to pitch him. I think it's more the fact of if there's any signs of like, is your arm feeling decent? If it's just like this, it's like, no, we're taking it. If he's fine, he'll pitch. It's just, I think, if pitchers are actually complaining that it's affecting their motion and endurance, right, longevity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how come it's the ace pitchers and it's not affected? To me, I view it that like the pitchers that are already good are already good. Why wouldn't this affect the crappier pitchers? Why aren't we looking at Kyle Gibson going, well, now Kyle Gibson's going to be even more crap?
I think that we probably should, but I also think that it's worth saying that there's likely not a super large difference between like a very good pitcher and a great pitcher. I think that there is probably a little bit of a difference in control. I think there's probably a little bit of a difference in understanding how to pitch, but for the most part, I don't think that a drop in RPMs is going to hurt somebody whose RPMs are not already super high to begin with, because that's not what they're making their money on. Like Garrett Cole makes his money on having a high RPM on his fastball, but Kyle Gibson doesn't. So like the guys
So
that are
is it the type of thing, James? Is it the type of thing? Because it is. I mean, I'm not super, knowledgeable about like the actual mechanics of pitching, but I mean, I've been following baseball for so long that like the difference between the miles, it's very similar. That the difference between the miles per hour as the speed goes up gets exponentially more effective. Meaning that like if you could throw a 92-mile-an-hour fastball, the difference between throwing a 92 and a 93-mile-an-hour fastball, that 1 mile an hour, doesn't make that much difference. Like a 90 to a 94-mile-an-hour pitch is about the same. But then once you go up to 97, like the difference between a 94-mile-an-hour fastball and a 97-mile-an-hour fastball is much bigger gap. And the difference each mile an hour from 97 up to like 101, like throwing 99 and 101 is actually a big gap.
Yeah.
Because you're getting into reaction times that are even smaller and smaller, that you like even like the human brain can't even like comprehend well enough. So right. Is it very much like that with spin rate, that if the normal pitcher spin rate is X, right? These ace pitchers are able to do like X plus 5, and now they're only able to do X plus 2, but that other extra 3 is what makes them like the ace. So like having the crappier pitchers having a spin rate of like X minus 1, like doesn't like it's hard not to throw. Like when you throw a fastball, it's gonna rotate, right? Like right. There's like any pitcher throwing 90 miles an hour is gonna have a spin rate that's gonna be almost like any other pitcher's 90-mile-an-hour fastball, right? Like Zach Greinke. How much does it affect Zach Greinke?
Yeah, probably not at all.
Nothing. Yeah. Right, not at all. Right. I mean, he barely throws over 90 to begin with. So do you think that I know it's very hard you can't really, there's going to be no data or sample size or anything. Would it be too much weight? Or I think a better way of putting it is that will the field overcompensate or undercompensate, or will projection models not pick it up fast enough? I'm looking for the exploit, for the what edge can we have in this time period that maybe pitchers that rely heavily on speed, on fastball speed, we should downgrade a little bit more and not necessarily ding the pitchers that don't necessarily rely on. I mean, there are strike. I mean, to me, Garrett Cole relies on speed, right?
Yeah. Well, so like there's two things to say about that, right? So the speed matters. Like throwing 97 is exponentially better than throwing 94. I agree with that point. But you also have to consider how much movement there is on the fastball. And if they're throwing like a 2-seamer, how much arm side run does it have? If they're throwing a 4-seamer, how much vertical run does it have? Like those things matter. That's where RPMs come into play. So if you have 100 more RPMs on your fastball, then you're getting that extra like 3/4 of an inch of movement going up vertically. So if you think about like the way that pitch tunneling works, like these good pitchers, Garrett Cole, he gets there on speed, but he also gets there because he understands how to tunnel his pitches and he knows how to play off his fastball. So like his fastball going at 98 miles an hour and moving and running 3 inches vertically up, when he is able to pair that with a slider that can go like, down and out 3 to 6 inches or whatever, then the hitter not only has to consider what happens like at that point of where the ball is going to break. Is it going to be going 3 inches up, or is it going to be going 6 inches down and out? Right. So like there is that. I mean, we're talking almost a foot of difference of where that ball is going to end up at the plate. When you start dropping down those RPMs, now that fastball is only going to be moving up maybe an inch. Maybe the slider is only going to be dropping down, 4 inches. So you're cutting the efficiency of that tunneling in half. So like those RPMs, that's why RPMs matter. And that's why we pay so much attention to it. And that's why when Trevor Bauer, back when he was talking about like the Astros cheating and using like spider tack and stuff like that, that's why he was like, yeah, I know there's substance out there that can increase my RPMs by 400, and like I'll have the same fastball that Garrett Cole has. Lo and behold, a year later, his RPMs increased by 400 and he has the same fastball that Garrett Cole has. It's like, well, we know what you're doing, So that's why RPMs matter. So there's that part of it. And then the exploit right now, I think we need to go to Baseball Savant and we need to check on these ace pitchers. We need to check on Trevor Bauer. We need to check on Garrett Cole, Yu Darvish, these guys who are really, really good, and see what their RPM changes have been. We need to check and see what they have been able to accomplish since this lockdown has been put into place. There's a lot of talk about Garrett Cole losing his efficiency and like losing his RPMs. There's a lot of talk about Trevor Bauer, but those guys probably aren't the ones that I care to attack anyway. I think that it would be more about fading them. And on a 6-game slate like we have tonight, or like if it's a 5-game slate, I'm not sure that there's still even enough of a drop in efficiency. Like what, they give up a run and a half more, maybe, if their baseline.
Yeah, but that's the difference. But like if we take today's slate, for example, just purely as an example, the pricing on the pitchers are much more dramatic than the projections may be.
Oh, well, this slate is hilarious. This slate is a pretty bad example of like of this conversation.
Of course, because we have Yu Darvish and then basically
and then
not many. We have a lot of bad pitchers, right? No, but if you have to consider that the pricing on ace pitchers are going to be 10 to 12K,
sure,
and they may not have as much of a ceiling in comparison to an 8K pitcher. So it's not a matter of like which of the pitchers we attack. No, like I'm not saying like, oh, let's attack Derek Cole in his next start. It's more the fact is Derek Cole worth 10.8 in comparison to Aaron Savali at 8,500 or something. I mean, like that gap between the pitchers starts getting smaller, yet the field may still roster, 11K pitchers. That's why I wanted the relative difference in these spin rates from pitcher to pitch. Like if Garrett Cole isn't worth 10.8K, but Aaron Savali isn't worth 8,500 anymore either, then we're back to square one. Then everyone is still priced efficiently. It's just that we just have to expect that pitching scoring is going to be lower overall, right? It's going to be like, oh yeah, Trevor Bauer will still be the highest scoring pitcher on the slate, but he'll only score 24 points. And Aaron Savali type of pitcher who would normally score 18 is going to score 14. Like it just means all the pitching starts going down and the hitting starts going up, and like you're still relatively to their salary, you're still rostering the same people that you would anyway.
Yeah, and I think what that comes down to is projections. And so if I have a projection for Trevor Bauer where like if I don't touch anything, right? Like if I don't go in and touch Trevor Bauer's base stats, or if I don't go in and touch Garrett Cole's base stats or whatever, and they project for like 27 on any given slate, and they're 10.8, sure, that sounds, they'd still be a pretty good play at that point. And then the next pitcher is like 9,500 and they project for 20, right? So we have that 7-point gap. If we I still think at that point that the Garrett Cole or the Trevor Bauer that's projected for 27, even if you want to say they're a run and a half worse, and that's a serious drop. I mean, we're talking like going from an elite pitcher to like a barely above average pitcher. If you say that Garrett Cole is going to be a run and a half worse after these changes, that run and a half still has him projected at like 23.5. So you still have almost a 4-point gap between him and the next guy. So I think that's when the projections come into play, and like kind of being objective about what you're looking at with the projections and being honest with yourself about how much of a median difference you're going to be having. Because you're right that if Aaron Savali is not going to have as much of a drop and he still projects for like 19 fantasy points and Garrett Cole projects for 26, or Yu Darvish today projects for 26, Yu Darvish is still the right play, I think, in that situation, because I still think that even if you take a downgrade to Yu Darvish, he's still going to have a projection difference of like 4 or 5 points over Aaron Savali. So it is.
Yeah, but how do you even project that? Like how are you dealing? Are you regressing the recent results? I mean, like
I haven't
more
touched
so.
anything
I
yet.
mean,
I haven't touched anything yet because all my samples are significantly shorter than most projection samples in the industry anyway. So my stuff's going to catch on to it in a week. Like
if there is anything, it's going to catch on much more. I mean, because I know like with Cardi uses a much longer time period.
Yeah.
And
So
I don't know how he's going to deal with like because you can't overcompensate. You can't look at like let's say the past 2 starts and go, there's a noticeable difference in spin rate. Let me change everything. It's like even in 2 starts. But I mean, we've seen DeGrom like in this last start that he pitched 3 innings. I mean, I was watching him pitch. Doesn't look like anything affected him.
no, he's
right?
a
I mean,
god.
right? I mean, he got 8 strikeouts, and it's not like it was getting lucky strikeouts. He looked like Jacob. Garrett Cole looked different.
Yeah. Well,
Shane Bieber looked different.
Garrett Cole didn't only look different on the field, he was noticeably distraught in the after game interview. Like the dude was bummed because he knows, and like everybody kind of like saw that coming with Garrett Cole, right? Like we have seen him rubbing his fingers on his hat, and like we know that he was not this pitcher with the Pirates, and he went over to the Astros, and now he's this guy. But like we saw it coming with Garrett Cole, and I think there are guys that you can look at and you can say, yeah, this is probably going to affect them. Garrett Cole being one of them, Trevor Bauer being one of them. Like we know that Trevor Bauer, he said it in interviews that there are substances that can increase his spin rate 400, and he just started using them. So we know who these guys are, and you can go to Baseball Savant as well. And you can check on spin rates of guys. You can look at these expensive pitchers. You can go and look at Yu Darvish today. You can go and look at Tyler Mahle today, and look and see what their RPM drops have been over their last couple starts since we have been announced on this, and you can see.
But does it? The question I was asking before, does it affect mostly or more predominantly the fastball slider pitchers?
Yeah,
I take a look at someone like Kershaw. Like the spin rate affect? I mean, he throws that big curveball. I mean, like that's how he gets people. I mean, it's like if you're a fastball changeup, if you're a fastball curveball pitcher, like does it affect you as much as if? Because to me, like fastball slider is like that's the perfect example of you're hiding your slider behind your fastball, and that's the main difference of like the XY axis.
Right.
But if you're throwing fastball changeup, like the motion isn't what's getting, it's the speed. Like both pitches look the same, but one's 15 miles an hour slower.
Right.
And then
it's going to end up like over there.
Right. And a curveball is not as noticeably. I mean, it has to be that curveballs are slow pitches. But hiding that with the fastball is much different than the slider. Was to throw the fastball and the slider, I understand why you need the best grip in order to make those 2 pitches look the same. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm asking of. If we typically, okay, projections, whatever, pitchers are pitchers. I don't necessarily have to know what they throw, but do you think that because I think of Randy Johnson. Like I come from the older era of baseball. Like Randy Johnson's like the classic fastball slider pitcher. And it's like, well, if you take away, 2 inches of motion on his slider, it's like Randy Johnson ain't a Hall of Fame pitcher anymore. I mean, he's just throwing fastballs at that point. So do you think that the pitchers that do have that combination are more like, do you think 3 months from now, with enough data, if you were to separate that by pitch type, that the pitchers that predominantly throw, like Jake Arrieta ain't getting affected by this? I mean, like we're talking about like those types of pitchers, like Zach Greinke, like we don't have to worry about that. But going through and seeing like Brett Anderson on today's slate, don't worry, he barely could strike anyone out to begin with.
Right.
Should we care and look and go, okay, he's a fastball slider pitcher. Projection systems may not have caught up. I'm not going to say haven't, because maybe there is no difference. Maybe this is just a hypothesis. But do you think that those type of pitchers? Yes, I know that they're cracking down, and I know they reduced his price to 10-4, but it's like, well, he's a fastball slider pitcher, and then maybe I don't play him at 38% ownership or something because the field just hasn't adjusted yet.
Yeah, it's objective on the pitcher. I think there are going to be guys that are able to make it through, and I think there are going to be guys that are still going to be effective. It really does all have to do with price, and I think that it also has to do with the downside of the pitchers. I think we've seen somebody like Shane Bieber, who's been fallible this year. He was not fallible last year, and then it kind of seems like the league has caught up to some of his tactics. And if he is affected by it, which I think he will be affected by it, he probably drops down to like an 8K pitcher at most if he's like realistically affected by it, because the league had already figured him out. We've already seen his downside. He's been much more hittable. Somebody like Garrett Cole, like you can probably fade him, but he's still likely a 9 to 9.5K pitcher. Depending on where he's priced, like you're still going to want to use him. Yu Darvish, I don't know if he's going to be affected by this. At 10.2, he's probably still fine at that price. It's just, I think that we are going to see it on some guys, but I think that for the most part, they're going to figure out a way to still be effective enough. We're going to see a downswing, but I think they're still going to be effective enough. And when you pair it with the heat wave that we're going to get because we're coming into summer baseball, maybe there will be some opportunities to attack somebody like Trevor Bauer, or maybe there will be some opportunities to fade Garrett Cole in even good spots to get better effectiveness from cheaper pitchers. I don't know, but it's going to be.
It may be diamond stack time.
Right.
Because I don't do vomit stacks anymore because the two ace pitcher combination may not. Number one, they're pressing down some of these hitters that you could build two ace lineups too easy. So like to me, like if the average pitcher, if that pitcher gap is going to be much smaller, like it's like why am I paying 21,000 combined at pitcher on DraftKings when I could pay 14,000 and not sacrifice that much median and just okay, I'm playing Dodgers plus Astros today, right? You're just playing good offenses in good spots.
Frankly, that's kind of been a strategy that's been working this year anyway. I mean, we've had so many situations where like the Reds and the Braves on a slate together, that they're like a perfect stack together. They work really, really well and they're really expensive, but we've had so many pitchers that have ended up in this like $6,500, $7,500 range, $6,500 to $8K range that you really haven't needed to pay all the way up, especially because guys like Wade Miley have been getting freaking complete game shutouts, which probably stops now that the sticky substance stuff is like being cracked down. But I think we've seen plenty of efficiency from these mid-range pitchers, and the expensive teams have been absolutely crushing. And the cheaper teams have had their problems. I mean, we've seen a couple times where the Pirates or the Mariners or the Orioles, like these teams have done well, but a lot of the time you've needed two really expensive stacks in order to find success in GPPs, or at least one very expensive stack and then like a really short, small stack of a cheap team where you're kind of going high-low on pitcher. We haven't seen a lot of high-high on pitcher be super effective.
With the crackdown, I mean, they're not going to be. Are they going to be ejecting pitchers mid-game? From what they are. Okay, because I read something that they may check after the game, or like they'll check in between innings, but they're not going to do anything until after the game. Like, are we going to see actual ejections?
I'll bet we do. Yeah, I'll bet we do. Because they're confiscating gloves. They're like confiscating hats. That like they're confiscating stuff.
But will they? No, the question is, will they be ejected? Like from what they've worded it, to me, maybe I'm looking too much into it. I mean, truthfully, they changed the rules. So like, I don't know. I know the baseball rule book as of like 20 years ago when I was an umpire. Sure. Like if in any game that I umpired, if I found proof that a pitcher was doctoring the baseball, that's an ejection. That's by rule, by law, that's right. If someone came out with a shaver and was on the mound or whatever, like it's not that I'm going to confiscate that and then continue to let you pitch. No, I confiscate it and throw you out of the game. So,
yeah, and that's why I think that there will be ejections. I mean, if a pitcher gets caught with it, then how do they not eject them? And then here's the other question for DFS purposes. Would you rather the pitcher that you had get ejected or have to continue to pitch that game without their substances?
No, you would rather continue and then pay you on more points. Come on, what do you?
No, but think about what could happen if they are so reliant on that stuff And then the next inning, they come out and their control is gone. They walk 3 guys, they give up a grand slam, and now you're screwed in GPPs.
Yeah, but you're screwed in GPP if they pitch 3 innings and get ejected anyway.
Somebody won a GPP with like -4 points from a pitcher.
Okay, so then that grand slam shouldn't affect. I'll win with -4 points.
Fair.
I just don't think. I don't think we're going to see ejections.
It only makes sense to me that they eject somebody if they find them cheating. Because I
That's what they should do, but I'm not saying that. Look, they should have been cracking down on this. Truthfully, I don't even think they should be cracking down. I
don't think so either.
Right, I'm of the very when it comes to sports, the libertarian kind of viewpoint. When it comes to sports, me like the whole competitive integrity, like dude, the whole thing. It's a closed league. It's all designed to raise the valuation of these clubs for rich people. Let them take all the steroids they want. Let them doctor the ball all they want. Let's play with metal bats if they. I don't care. Let the games be 15-17. I don't like what. There's no intent like sanctity. It's a big business.
Right.
So like, let the pitchers doctor the ball. Let the hitters. I want to see guys with veins popping out of their heads. Coming up the plate with like muscles like this and hitting the ball 490 feet. Like, well, I want it to get to the point where Giancarlo Stanton is like the slap hitter, right? Right, where he's like batting 8th because it's like, no, we can't. The guy that only hits 460-foot home runs, like we'll bat him before the pitcher, right? Like we'll allow him on the team, right? But you need to be able to hit at least 550-foot home runs. Like I don't care, but like in any sport, like let them just have an even playing field of like anything goes and just like do whatever you want rather than like, well, some could get it because what ends up happening is that they get away with it anyway. And it just certain people are able to get it. It comes down to not if they're doing it, it's who gets caught.
Right.
So just make whatever.
Well, and if
do we care as fans if like
there are fans that care. There are fans that care. But I mean, here's my stance on the sticky stuff. It shouldn't be illegal because if you think about it, it's just the same thing as catchers using gloves in the NFL. Like that's all it is. It's just improving your grip on the ball that you are going to be holding or catching or throwing or whatever. And pitchers have been using something since like the 1710s, right? Since like feudal lords were sending out their best knight to go try to hit a rock thrown by a horse. Like the horse was using sticky tack. So like the spitball existed, and we have sunscreen and rosin, and we have guys going out there like chewing on the seams to try to get a better ball. Like it's been around forever. It doesn't make any sense to outlaw it, and the only reason why they're outlawing it is so that they can make it so that pitchers are less effective. But then, lo and behold, now the MLB has the problem of having there be too many runs, which is what they were trying to get rid of this year by doctoring the ball. So all these different changes, they have no idea what they're trying to do.
Who doesn't want more runs? Who's clamoring for 2-1 games?
The MLB.
Why?
Because they suck. Because they don't know anything. Because they don't have any clue how to actually like appeal to the younger generation. I was talking with American Numbers on Twitter, Arturo. He's a good friend of mine, and I keep arguing with him that like baseball is still something that people care about, and like why are the GPPs so small? And he's like, because nobody bets on MLB, and he's right. Nobody knows who the main people are for MLB. Like if Mike Trout is walking down the street next to Alex Caruso of the Lakers, you know who's going to be the bigger star there? Alex frickin' Caruso, because he's marketed, because the NBA knows how to market and the MLB doesn't. So like the MLB is just sitting here trying to make 6% more money for the billionaires that own these teams instead of actually like producing a good product and making something that people want to watch. They don't care about that. They only care about the 76-year-olds that are sitting there at home arguing about the fucking what's it called? Where people are going off in like second base, sitting over on third. What is that called? I can't remember.
The shift.
Thank you. The shift. Yeah, everybody's arguing about the shift. Like that doesn't matter. Who cares? Hit a home run. Just hit a home run. It's so annoying. It's so
well, the shift wouldn't matter as much if the balls were put into play and there were more runs scored.
Yeah.
But I mean, I take a look at I take a look at MLB, and like the players they really should be marketing are guys like Vlad Guerrero Jr., Shohei Ohtani, like Ronald Acuna, Fernando Tatis, right? All those, and it's weird to say, but the boring old white guys are not that marketable.
They're not, and I know that, and I get that, and like the MLB has a problem with that too. Where like the league is, I mean, it is better than it used to be, but like let's be honest, it's not super inclusive of other cultures joining into the ranks, right? So it is just like it is such a old person's league, and it is marketed so badly that it's no wonder that it's falling out of favor. And I've said before on other podcasts and like in other spots that I think that esports as a conglomerate, like as an aggregate, esports will be bigger than the MLB in 5 years, just because they know how to market their stars at the very least. Like
Flops, I know Plopsky, right?
Yeah, see, you
Plopsky
know
is still right. I remember from last week.
You know it. You know it. Enough people like know a little bit about esports now. Like streamer culture is starting to grow, and like the stars of certain North American leagues are starting to grow past this point where the MLB, because of blackout restrictions, because of marketing problems, because of like all the stupid rules they're putting in, people don't like the MLB. They don't, because
James, if it wasn't for DFS, I would not watch baseball. I barely watch baseball to begin with. Right. I wouldn't even care. I would be like, baseball, that's still around.
And like, like for me, it's not even the dumb rules that they put in. It's just the umpires, and it's just like them refusing to get with the times and making the game the best that it can be. And like, we've kind of gone off the rails here in terms of like the original discussion, but
whatever, it doesn't matter. It's Mondays with McCool. It's anything goes. If people want to ask questions or make comments, you can do it in the YouTube chat. Because Daniel Hutchings says, which I can understand, the only argument I find compelling for banning stuff like steroids is to protect the players. But if you have PEDs that are proven to be safe, they should be allowed. I think even if it's not safe, it should be allowed. That's their choice. They want to die when they're 32 years old. That's fine. For my entertainment, I'm all fine. That's their choice.
So yeah, it's hard. I think that steroids probably could be allowed in the MLB, but it's a slippery slope when you start getting into things that are physical contact. Like steroids should not be allowed in football. They should not be allowed in football. Have you ever played NFL Blitz?
Well, yeah, that's what it would be like. Right,
that's what it would be. We can't have that. We can't have it in soccer, right? Like people would be like literally losing legs in the middle of games. Like we can't have that. We can't have it in basketball because like then Boban Marjanovic would actually be able to play the game and nobody else could do anything. So we can't have it in physical sports. I think we could have it in baseball. Just because, yeah, there's nothing wrong if you give. Like, let Giancarlo Stanton take steroids. Let's see how far he can actually hit a baseball, right? Like, if Giancarlo Stanton is taking steroids, do you think he can hit it 550 feet? I do. I think he can hit 575 feet, and that'd be rad. That'd be sick. It would break a car windshield on the highway. It'd be crazy. I think it'd be okay in baseball, but not in contact sports, because you do end up, like, really – it's one thing if baseball players want to play until they're 40 and then just like lose every muscle that they have, but like they hit 48 home runs in like 6 games, cool, that's fine. But I don't want to see people literally die on the field.
I want baseball to get to the point where we're playing DFS and we're rostering pitchers that who gets the least amount of negative points. Right? With keep the same DFS scoring. It's like, okay, if you can get 2 pitchers that combine for -8, you have the nuts, right? Because every game is like 17-12.
And every single shark player, every single smart player would pick up on the fact that you would just take relievers every single game or pitchers that aren't pitching. And for 2 weeks, the edge would be huge.
And FanDuel wouldn't change their scoring system for 3 years. Right. Right, DK would get it. DK would eventually go, okay, this let's remove these automatic zero players because that would be so you have to roster a negative pitcher, and FanDuel would be like, oh no, we're just gonna leave them at we're actually gonna leave them at minimum price.
Yeah, no,
So
they
it makes
do
it
less
easier
than
for
minimum
you.
price. That's the
Right.
change they would make. They would make it so that you could roster a pitcher that's not playing, and it would give you more money to spend on hitters. That's what
Right.
FanDuel would do.
Well, we got good contests today on we got because the NBA. Once NBA is over, I think we're gonna get bigger contests. It's been frustrating.
No, they're going to put all the money into Dota.
Dota, yeah, no, they're not gonna do that.
I hope they do. I like my Dota model. Yeah, no, there's good contests and 6-game slate. That's my wheelhouse. I love a 6-game
No,
slate.
and that's too small.
No, it's not. You say it's too small because you're conservative.
No, I say it's too small because if you don't get the guy that hits the home run at 2%, you lost.
I disagree with that. I think you can find your edge based on the pitching chalk.
Oh, you could.
We just talked about that at the beginning of this.
Okay. Let's assuming the weather holds off or whatever, the Astros are going to be like super duper chalk.
Sure.
Tonight.
Yeah.
What on these types of slates, like on a 6-game slate, for instance.
Yeah.
This is why I don't like these. This is why I don't like these. It doesn't mean I'm not good at them. It just means that the strategy becomes different. Like I'm much more likely to X out the team in an entire lineup than play any of them as one-offs.
Yeah, I agree with that.
On a 6-game slate, if it was a 13-game slate, I wouldn't care about one-offs.
Sure.
No, because the problem comes in is like I'm taking a look at our current DK ownership on the Astros. Altuve 32%, McCormick 35%, Brantley 28%, Gurriel 16%, Alvarez 36%, Correa 18%, Toro 11%, Maldonado 20%, and Miles Straw 1%.
Sure.
What that says to me is that if I play an Astro stack, if I play a 5-man Astro stack on DK, it's going to have Miles Straw in it.
It has to. Yeah.
And if I don't do that, then I shouldn't be playing a 5. I shouldn't. As far as what's the easiest path to first, it's the most likely lineup to win a 5-man Astro stack with all the most, playing Altuve, McCormick, Alvarez, Maldonado is a cheap catch, like doing something like that. Toro, he's 2,100. Like, yes, but you're going to be competing against a lot of the same line. You're going to need like the nuts. You're going to need like the perfect lineup. To me, I'd rather just, if I'm going to play the Astros, either play them as a 5-man weirdly, or literally don't play them at all. And I mean, truthfully, like I'm considering having some Keegan Aiken in some lineups because it's looking at this ownership. It's quite possible that a quarter, like literally a quarter, 25% of all lineups in this like super knuckleball, the $5 large field today, they're doing the super knuckleball. So it's 70-something thousand entries. But it's quite possible if this ownership is correct that 25% of all lineups in the contest will be a 5-man Astro stack.
Yeah, and like they rate well for me, but they're not my top team.
Oh, they aren't your top team. According to based on the bat, the top teams on the slate from a ceiling perspective, do you have the Brewers up there against Kelly?
Brewers 10% chance, 10.6% chance.
Let me guess. Is it the Reds against Hap?
It is.
How do you have the Diamondbacks against Brett Anderson?
Bad.
Really?
Well, so the Diamondbacks are on like a 26-game losing streak. They're not going to rate well for me.
What does it matter if they win or lose games? If they lose a game and score 8 runs, what do I care?
No, well, I mean, I'm just saying their baselines suck. Like over in the recent sample, their baselines just suck.
Oh, so in the recent, okay, because Cardi doesn't care if that.
Yeah.
About the
no, they rate like trash for me. My top teams as it stands now, in terms of top score percentage, are the Reds, the Astros, the Twins, the Brewers, and the Rangers. Those are
the Rangers.
Rangers, yeah.
Against Montes.
Against Montes.
Really?
Yeah, well, so I don't have them scoring necessarily a lot of points against Montes, but I do have them going into the bullpen and doing okay. And the only reason why the Rangers are up there is because I have a lot of teams that are projecting really, really badly. Like Diamondbacks, Indians, Cubs, like those teams just don't even have a chance. So when it comes down to teams that actually do have a relative chance, I have the Rangers up there.
Okay, the Rangers are the lowest projected team in the bat.
That sounds right.
By far.
Yeah.
But based on Cardi's methodology, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
Right. If you're going to go by just recent stuff, I mean, obviously there's a lot of noise there.
Yeah. So I mean, like when it comes down to the teams that it kind of sounds like both me and Cardi are on, the Reds, Astros, and Brewers.
Yeah, right. Like Astros would be 1, Brewers 2, Reds 4.
Yeah.
Diamondbacks are 3. Twins are 5 or 6. Now, once you get in the middle range, it's all kind of the same. Like everywhere, like the Twins, the Cubs, the Indians, the Dodgers, the Orioles, like they're all like kind of like the same range type of thing.
That's what I have to.
Right.
So when I look at that though, like if the Astros are going to be 32% owned, I have no reason to play them. I just don't.
So you're more willing to just completely if here's the question. If you're going to completely X out the Astros,
yeah,
why wouldn't you play Keegan Aiken in some lineups?
I will.
Okay. It does from a correlation perspective. Like if I'm going to do that, Keegan, because most likely these like if you're going to build lineups, like we have these cheap pitchers. Like one of these guys, James, one of these guys is going to do well.
Yeah,
we have. In the bat, from a point per dollar perspective, the 3 top pitchers from a point just for point per dollar in the bat right now, Gibson, Odorizzi, and Happ.
Yeah, Gibson, Odorizzi, sure.
Right, I know. Like Happ is like
I have Happ projected for 3 fantasy points, so not great on the fantasy point per dollar there.
Yeah, the bat has it at 12. Has him at 12.
I'll take the under. Yeah, but Jake Odorizzi and Gibson, I see that. I have some.
Yeah, but Odorizzi is probably going to be. I mean, he's 5,900. He's facing Baltimore.
Yeah, he'll be popular. I think Gibson will be popular at 6,300.
I'll be a little bit less. Attacking Oakland. I mean, I think Orioles are a worse team than Oakland. But I'm saying, one of these 3 pitchers, I'm telling you, and it could be Happ, right? It could be.
Sure, could be.
Probably less likely, but it could be.
Could be.
One of these pitchers are going to put up 20 points.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about 20 points. I think that like their medians being around 15, it makes sense for those guys.
Yeah, the bat has it at 12 or 13, like 12, 13, 13.7. Like Aiken's projection in the bat right now is 8. So Aiken actually has the lowest raw points projection. But this is the concept that I'm trying to point out, is that, for instance, if you just don't look at median and you just look at ceiling and floor, which in the bat is the 25th and 75th percentile.
Yep.
So let's say you have the choice of playing J.A. Happ or Keegan Aiken, which is not the greatest of choices, obviously. J. Happ is 5,300. Aiken is 5,100. Now, Aiken's floor is -2. His ceiling is 20. Happ's floor is 1.9 and his ceiling is 25. So you're like, oh, Happ has a 5-point higher ceiling. But Aiken is facing Houston. Happ is facing Cincinnati. Now, they're both going to be owned, but the Astros are probably going to be 3 times as owned as Cincinnati. So even though Happ has a higher ceiling by 5 points, you get more relative value in your contest by playing Keegan Aiken. And you get even more relative value if you play Keegan Aiken, obviously in a lineup that doesn't have the Astros in it. Because if the Astros stacks are going to fail, if the Astros players are going to fail, that means it's most likely Aiken has reached his ceiling, that he's gotten 20 points. Now, I say the word players because it's very important that you separate the difference between players and stacks. A 5-man Astros stack fails even if they score 5 runs on Aiken. Right? Like, let's say you roster 5 Astros. They score 5 runs. One of them hits a home run, and none of the Astros have more than 20 points. Right? You have like 3 guys with double digits and a couple of guys with like 5s and 3s and stuff, which means the 5-man stack failed. You're probably not going to win with it. But also Aiken is sitting there with 3 points. I mean, like Aiken didn't do well either. Right? So you have to consider just like, oh, well, I'm not going to play Astro stacks, so I'm going to play Aiken. Like, no, Astro stacks could fail and Aiken could fail. But if no Astros player has double digits, it's very quite likely that Aiken has 20 plus points.
Yeah.
Right? Because if he didn't give up any, like if he gave up 2 runs, 6 strikeouts, 6 innings pitched, like for 5,100, you're going to get his points, and him being 2% owned versus the Astro stacks being like a third of the lineups in the contest. Like, that's the easiest path to first place. Now, does it happen that often? No. But when it does happen, you'll be able to win first place, but not nowhere near the nuts. Right? You'd have a lineup with a 0 in it and win. Right? If the Astro stacks die today as a stack. But it's quite possible Astro stacks fail if they score 5 runs, but one guy has 2 home runs. Right? If Chas McCormick comes out and hits 2 home runs against Aiken, and then none of the Astros really do much other than like single here and there, Astro stacks fail. But you're going to still need Chas McCormick as a one-off to win a GPP. So you have to think in terms of what is the win condition of a lineup. So how you choose to build your lineups, or how many types of lineups do you have? How many of 100 or 20? Think in those terms. So I don't like talking about, do you X out the Astros? It's like, well, in a lineup, if you're playing 5 lineups today, you could not play the Astros in all 5 of them. Sure. You could play a one-off in one of them. I mean, like, the lineups are independent of one another. So to talk in like these terms of like, is it plus EV to just X out the Astros? It probably is, but it's also high variance. It's also, it's quite possible a 3-man Astro stack does succeed. It's quite possible that a one-off succeeds. It's obviously the most likely that a 5-man succeeds on DraftKings. And can you build an Astros chalk 5-man and still get enough leverage elsewhere? Yes, you can. But it's just harder to do. Right? You could play a 5-man if you want to play a 5-man Astro stack and then play, like, who's going to be popular? Let's see. You want to play the Rangers against Montes, if Montes is going to be like 30+% owned. If you want to play the Orioles against Odorizzi, who's going to be 30+% owned or something, and you combine them together or something, okay, you could find some 1% to, like, let me take a look at our current ownership on the Rangers.
While you're doing that, I'll just point out that one of the cool things about Keegan Aiken today, not necessarily that I am promoting playing Keegan Aiken, but he has what we call both direct and indirect leverage, because he has the direct leverage that you gain from playing somebody against the chalk stack of the Astros. Then you have the indirect leverage as well of playing him instead of Odorizzi or Happ, who both project better.
Right.
So not only do you get to, pass the people that have the Astros stack because you have that direct leverage, you can also go a long way towards keeping up or passing the people with Odorizzi and Happ if they do worse than Aiken. So that is massive, massive, massive leverage. If you play Aiken, you can make whatever choice you want with the rest of your lineup. The leverage doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. The ownership doesn't matter. If you play Aiken, you have complete freedom with the rest of your lineup. You don't have to make any more choices.
Right, because obviously if you're playing Aiken, you're not playing Astros.
Right.
Right, in and of itself. And if you're playing Aiken, you're probably not playing Odorizzi or Gibson. Right? You're probably not pairing them together and leaving 4,000 on the table. I mean, it's almost impossible to build a lineup with those two, with paying 10.5K total at pitcher. But take a look at the Rangers. Like, the Rangers ownership is 3%, 13%, 3%, 6%, 3%, 1%, 1%, 8%, 1%.
Yep.
So I mean, if you could play all the chalk Astros, and you could play Willie Calhoun, Eli White, and Adolis Garcia. You know, something. I mean, they're all outfielders. You probably need to find, instead of playing Correa in your Astro stack, you're playing Isaiah Kiner Falefa at 3% instead. And instead of playing Altuve, you're playing Solak at 3%. And then you're playing the other Astros, right? You're playing McCormick, Brantley, Gurriel, Toro, right? I'm looking at the positions, and Maldonado. It's like, dude, you're good, right? So you can play Astros stack lineups and still get different. Just understand you have to be perfect with those range. You have to be near perfect with your other players. But the other players also have to be less owned. If you're going in and you're like, I'm going to play, this is what I'm going to do, James. I'm going to plug in Darvish. Okay, let me plug in Darvish. There's Darvish at 10.2. I'm going to plug in Odorizzi at 5.9K. I'm going to take 5 Astros, and then I'm going to take Nick Castellanos. I'm going to play Tyler Stevenson at catcher. No, I'm playing Maldonado at catcher, right? I'm taking Castellanos, and then I'm, dude, you're playing the cash lineup practically. I mean, Byron Buxton's 4,800. That may be too low, right? You're playing something like that. I mean, dude, I could do that. Look, if I go into the bat right now and just look at what the optimal lineup is, it's literally a 5-man. Here's the optimal lineup for the bat as of 10:35 with no starting lineups. Darvish, Gibson. You're good with that, right?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Okay. Catcher, Maldonado.
Yep.
Altuve, Toro, Correa, McCormick. Okay, 5-man Astros.
Good. Cool. Good.
Castellanos.
Yep.
Right. Against Hap at 4,500. Trey Mancini against Odorizzi at 5,200.
Okay, sure.
And Yelich against Merrill Kelly at 5,500.
Yep, that is it.
So should you be playing a lineup that has a 231% ownership sum? Probably not.
Well, and there will be people that do it, and then
there's tons of people. That's why I love playing the large field GPPs. There'll be tons of lineups that look like this.
Just wait for them to say, "But I scored 190 points. I didn't cash."
Right. No, you scored it. No, they still cashed, right? If the Astros go nuclear and hit 16 runs and whatever, and Castellanos has a double dong day, it'll be the I scored 220 points and still only doubled my money.
It'll be both. It will be both. Eat all the chalk. Why are you fading the chalk? And also, why am I not making money? It'll be both.
No, they're still min cash. They're still min cashing. So it's not like they didn't cash.
That's fair.
But they'll be like first place was like 300 points today.
Yeah.
They go, I put up the highest score I ever did, and I only got 1.5x. It's like,
I would much rather just score 162 points today with my red stack and Keegan Aiken as my ace. And win a GPP that way, rather than having to be exactly right and end up on, whoever it is that scores 38 fantasy points at 1% owned. Miles Straw, 38 fantasy points somehow, steals every base that he walks on or whatever. I don't know. But
let me take a look. I'm gonna do 5x. Let's see. I'll do the blunt way. I'm gonna cap hitters at 50%, just so I get different lineups. 50-50. Let me build 100. Just to show. I do this. I show this on the pregame show because people are gonna look and go, why shouldn't I play a lineup that projects for 111 points? I mean, that is a stack already.
Yeah.
Right. But that's still a cash line. I mean, if you play double ups on DraftKings today, you're going to see a lot of 5-man Astro stacks, not because they're stacking the Astros. It's because the Astros are underpriced.
Yeah.
Okay, here's 100. Okay, I did 100 lineups. I capped each player, just the players at 50%. Just if I didn't do that, I would just get literally 100 Astro stacks.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I sort by fantasy points, okay, if I look, the top lineup is the one, obviously, that I just said before at 111, 231 current projected ownership. All these numbers are going to change by 7 o'clock tonight. Let's see what the next highest projected lineup that is not a 5-man Astro stack. Remember, I put in 5X, so it's going to be all 5 mans. Okay, Astros, it's going to see a ton. Are we even, let me just make sure, are there any? Yeah, I'm using bat projection, so it'll be Arizona.
Yeah.
Okay, Arizona's top, yeah, wow. Arizona's top 5X stack, which is a Urias. Yeah, because I've cut, okay, I need to do this again, because since I'm cutting the pitchers down, I'm not getting so I have to do this with the Astros itself. Because it's not going to give me the right. It's giving me Urias and like Kelly and stuff, and it's like that isn't going to do it. So let me go to the stacks page and make sure that I don't get more than 10% of the Astros, just so I get a bunch of other stuff. But I'm still able to get Astros guys as like 100% one-offs and stuff.
Yeah.
Just so the projections of each lineup could stay up. You're gonna get bunch problems. So you're gonna get all the Astro stacks bunch with all the best plays, and then all the other stacks bunch with nothing. Okay, so I get 100% Darvish. Okay, this makes more sense. Okay, so look at the stack summary. So I'm getting 10% Astros, but then I'm getting Diamondbacks, Brewers, and the Reds. So if I go to the top Diamondbacks lineup, okay, the top Diamondbacks lineup is 104-point projection, but still 224 ownership sum, because obviously the one-offs in this lineup are Yelich, McCormick, and Altuve, right? With Darvish and Gibson, right? If I go to the next one, 249, that's even a lower projection. 226, 210. Now if I go to Milwaukee, I get, okay, this is better. 105 projection, 105.72, 170 ownership. This is a Brewer stack. It's a 5-3. It's Darvish, Gibson with Yelich, Garcia, Adames, Vogelback, Narvaez, and then Altuve, Toro, McCormick.
Yeah, much nicer.
Right. It gives up like 6 points in projection, but gets you what? 60 points in ownership.
And you could even drop McCormick off of that and play straw.
Oh yeah, well, once you play straw, I mean, your projection is going to go down by about maybe 4 points.
Yeah, but now you're at 101.
You're going to lose 34 points in ownership.
Right, you're at 101. You're only at like 140.
And here's 148. Here's one. It's only 105.45. It's still 5-man Brewers, but instead of now Yelich isn't in here. Now Yelich is there, but we have Jackie Bradley Jr. We have Altuve, Toro, Correa. So it's no McCormick. All your outfield spots are occupied by Brewers. You still have Gibson, Darvish, but no, you have 148. So you're giving up like 6 points in projection, and you're gaining 85 points in ownership. Like this would be the type of lineup that I would be playing.
Yeah.
Right. And then we take a look at the Brewers that took it to the Reds. Right. This is highly like, look at this one's even worse. 104 projection, 281 ownership because look at what happens when you do this. You're playing Darvish, Montes, but you're playing the 3-man of McCormick, Altuve, and Maldonado, and you have Castellanos in your red stack, and he's mega owned. Eugenio Suarez, who's mega owned. Tyler Stevenson at first base, who's mega owned. This projects. It's weird to say. This lineup projects 7 points worse, yet is much horrible lineup than the actual optimal.
Yeah.
Right? So actually, this lineup would be worse than playing the actual optimal. Like, you shouldn't be playing this. You should just be Xing that out completely.
Yeah.
Right? You look down, because once you have Castellanos and McCormick in the same lineup. Like, if you could separate them, yeah, these Reds Astros stacks are going to be this is going to be ridiculously owned. Because you could play Darvish and then one of the cheap pitchers.
Yep.
And you have no problem. Look, even with Savali, you could do it. Once you play Suarez, McCormick, and Castellanos together, dude, you better find some 1% owned guys.
Yeah. Better stack the Rangers.
Right. But that's what you do. That's why you like, let's say here, let's do something else. Let's do 5 threes. I mean, we have a minute or two left. Just to show. This is a research thing. So I'm gonna do 5 threes now. But I'm going to limit. I'm going to do Astros at 20. Let's make it all. Let's do Astros and Reds. So cap them at 50. Because that's all I want is a primary stack. I'm just 5-man, but we want the 3-man stack, secondary stack, to be nothing. Like, I don't want any Reds or any Astros, or really. So I'm going to set them at like 2%. And let's say Arizona at 10 and Milwaukee at 10. Because they also project well. Minnesota, everything like that. Okay. Just to run it. Just to show the differences. I mean, just to show this is what I always say in the RotoGrinders Discord about me picking lineups, not players. Just to see. Okay, so the first one is obviously going to be high. 108, 208. Darvish, Montes. Brewers 3-man, Astros 5-man. So if we just go by, okay, points, I'm just going to scroll down. Just see just ownership sums. 176. I'm going to see 262. That's way too high. 179. I'm looking for something more in like the 140 range, if there is any. Let's see, 174, 224, 198. We may not be able to get to a 140. Let's see. 197s, 193s. So I'm still playing Darvish, so obviously the ownership is going to be high. 155. Okay, we found something. Okay, close enough. 98-point projection. Okay, so good thing you're giving up that much ownership.
Yeah.
This is a Reds Orioles 5-3.
Okay, I'm into that. With
Franco, Stewart, and Mancini. And you're playing the red stack with no Suarez in it. You're playing Aquino instead. And your pitchers are Darvish, Savali. Because obviously, since you're not paying up, you could pay for Savali. It's not the greatest projection, but you may be getting enough ownership for that.
I think you are. I think that sounds fine.
Right. Here's some 166. Here's another one. Reds. Yeah, here's Reds, Orioles with Darvish and Gibson. Here you're playing Suarez, but you're not playing Castellanos, right? Like that's the only way to get those, right? You're playing Mountcastle, Mullins, and Mancini in your lineup. But these are the lineups that I'd be looking at. Like the next lineup, look, one lineup is 98.49 at 166 ownership sum. The next one is 98.47, so lower. It's 0.02 lower, and its ownership is 80 points higher. Right? But this is a Twins. This is Darvish, Gibson, Reds with the chalk Reds, and then a 3-man Twins with Polanco, Buxton. Polanco's 20%, Buxton's 28%, and Jeffers is 9%.
Yeah.
So that projects lower than a lineup that has so like you wouldn't be playing these lineups. Like this is a lineup that you would X out because the lineups above it are so much better. Right? Here's a 212. Here's right? You can see these Reds Twins lineups just are not doing it. But this is how you find out how to differentiate, especially on a 6-game slate. James, on a 14-game slate, you don't have to get this granular.
No, you don't. You don't have to care this much.
Right, because you're more likely to find like tons of combinations that like are all projected the same and owned the same, and it's just like which ones to play with. Close your eyes, play whatever ones you want. I mean, like you could play if there was one chalk stack on a 14-game slate, and you're like, I want to play the chalk stack. It's like, dude, you could combine them with like 12 other teams, and have the same projection and the same ownership. Like it's going to be the difference between those secondary teams is not going to matter that much. Okay. So we covered a lot, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we got to talk through a bunch.
Right. Okay. So give us a thumbs up on the way out the door. Thanks for tuning in. People are talking in the chat. Let's see. Looking through. We can talk about stuff tomorrow. We've been running long. Give the thumbs up. James, paydirt_DFS, paydirtdfs.com. People want to check out your incredibly small sample models. That's an intentional dig. But that's where you think you get your edge. I mean, by almost overweighting recent results.
Exactly. Yeah.
But not recent. It's not like the past 2 games type of thing.
Basically, I would rather be wrong on these short samples than wait until I'm right on a long.
Right. You want to grab the edge as quickly as possible, even though maybe 30% of the time you're completely wrong. Like that edge you thought you had actually didn't exist.
Right. Yeah. And I'm okay eating that, being right the other, 70% of the time on something that.
Right. You want to be right. You want to be right on the 2% owned, guy that got called up and had a good game, and then is it going to continue? And maybe it is going to continue, or the pitcher that is like on this slate going to be 8% owned. Like you wanted to be early this season on Robbie Ray.
Yep.
Right.
And I was. He's not going to get the Cy Young, but I was right about the improvement.
Right. But I'm saying you want Robbie Ray his first 2 or 3 starts where he's 8% owned, rather than his 4th and 5th start where he's the 32% owned chalk.
Got to beat the field on it, man. It's important.
Okay, you can check out the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports 15-hour audio DFS masterclass, theoryofdfs.com. If you want more conversations like this, it's structured education. We have 11 chapters in that audio course, 15 hours. People listen to it time and time, and you can listen to it over and over again. It's the game theory of DFS. It applies to every sport. So go check that out. Theoryofdfs.com. Thanks to Devin producing, filling in for Eli today. And I'll be back. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll probably go over how a chalk lineup that scored 300 points won the GPP. And you're fading the Astros and playing Keegan Aiken. What an idiot. I know that's more likely to happen. So most likely I'll be talking about that tomorrow, as I always do, Mondays through Fridays, 11 a.m. Eastern, on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.